with that, I'll jump in. My name's Susan Gallo, and I'm the executive director at Maine Lakes. I am not a LakeSmart expert, but I did have the pleasure and privilege of overlapping with Maggie Shannon, who many of you know as sort of the original LakeSmart force. She was really the person responsible for bringing the program to Maine Lakes. So I worked with her her last couple of years on the program, and so I've sort of shepherded it through. Unfortunately, a couple of LakeSmart managers, but I'm really excited that Andrea's here and on board, and she has been doing a great job. And we are, in all likelihood, well, we're going to hire somebody, a second person, since Andrea's part-time. We're going to hire a second part-time person, potentially, ideally, probably somebody in northern Maine in the Bangor area, so that we'll have some good better geographic coverage and be able to travel and reach more people. So if anyone comes across a good LakeSmart sort of I guess it would probably be a program assistant to work with Andrea, keep us in mind, because I'll tell you, it's a challenging world out there hiring folks. So we're very lucky to have found Andrea. Hopefully we'll find another good person. So with that, I will jump into the slideshow. It's going to be mostly me today. Jawing at you, but a couple of you I've talked to, and I know a couple other people have shown up. So we will end the last 15 or 20. I'm going to try to keep it to 30 to less than 40 minutes for me, and then the last 15 minutes we can really give people like Marie, Roy, Ellie, anyone else who would like to share their experience on their lake for the new folks. If any of you want to say a few words, that'd be great, and there'll be hopefully lots of time for questions. We may go a little past 6 o'clock, but I'll try not to. We'll try to wrap it up, by 6:10 at the latest. But otherwise, just jump in, raise your hand, interrupt me as I go along. And especially the experienced people, if I'm missing something, or there's something you want to add, just please jump in and do that. So, all right, now okay. Is that showing up with the right thing? Oh, okay, everybody close your eyes. I gotta go back to the beginning. All right, there we go. Is that the right slide?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so welcome everybody. Hold on, I just have to get a little better orientation here. Okay. So yeah, so this is the first of two parts, a two-part training for new evaluators and coordinators, and also a refresher for anybody who needs it or wants it. So thanks to everyone for being here. Just quickly, our agenda, I realized as I was putting the slides together, man, an hour is just not a lot of time. So this is kind of my idea for an agenda. Brief introduction to lake science, then talking about sort of just an overview of LakeSmart, how it got started and how it works, and why the way it works is so important. And then a little bit about a sort of big picture overview of the process, who does what and how that all works. We're not going to get, last year we did one big training. We did all of this and the walk through the evaluation process, and that we decided that was too much, so we're breaking it up. So I won't talk about the evaluation at all, but Andrea will be leading that charge in a couple of weeks. Next week, there's two options to take that training. And then, like I said, we'll have some stories, hopefully from LakeSmart team members who are here, and then some Q&A time. And if we don't get your questions answered, Andrea and I are available. Andrea's on a limited schedule for a couple weeks, but between her and I and the experienced folks that we know, we'll get your questions answered. So just a little bit about Maine Lakes, where Maine Lakes oversees the program. Here's just our mission, you know, really protecting and preserving the value of Maine's lakes, and then supporting, creating programming and activities that protect healthy lakes. We're really interested in supporting the next generation of lake stewards. So education is a big part of our mission. And then we actively engage in all kinds of activities with our members, and we're really, we really try hard to support lake associations. That lake associations were the core of our membership for many years. We were the Maine Congress of Lake Associations, so we try really hard to keep that as part of our main part of our mission and our goals. Here's our mission in pictures. I think it's much nicer than the words, but we're driven by sort of the idea, the quote up there from Governor Baxter, that the lakes of Maine belong to everyone. And we remind people of that as often as we can. And we like to remind people that, you know, it's not just, it's people for sure. And we're certainly here to protect lake resources for people, but also for wildlife, for the economy, for all the things that we all like to do on lakes. And some of the things that we provide, that Maine Lakes provides, we have a newsletter that goes out twice a year. We work in Augusta on statewide policy. We produce a lot of resources and information. We're working right now on a loon raft project. There's a couple pictures up there. Robin has been involved with that. That's been a really fun project for us. We're working with Maine Audubon on that. We have a conference every year. This year, 2022, was virtual for the third year in a row, but we are determined for 2023. Did I say 23? We're determined for 2023 to have an in-person conference. There's generally some kind of LakeSmart track and activity at that annual conference. It's generally the third Saturday in July. So keep that in mind. And then lakes.me is our website.
Third Saturday in June.
What? Oh, did I say July?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm jumping ahead. Oh, yeah. I think third Saturday in July is the Loon Town. Third Saturday in June. So we don't have a lot of time to go over to really delve deeply into lake science, but I think it's really important as a potential LakeSmart volunteer. There's some basic principles that we like everybody to to grasp and to share with homeowners. Most of these graphics that I'm showing you come from the Lake book. It's if you've been around, if you've been with Maine Lakes or Maine Coal or Maine Lake Society, you have heard of the Lake book. It's gone through a bunch of different iterations. It's in its fourth printing. It just got back from the printers a couple of weeks ago. It was a labor of love, sweat, tears. On my part, so I'm pretty happy about it. We'll be providing them to all the LakeSmart evaluators, coordinators, and we'll be giving people enough copies that when you go as a LakeSmart volunteer, when you go to do an evaluation, you'll be able to give a copy of the Lake book to every homeowner that you visit. So Andrea's working on coordinating how to get all those to you, but it's really a booklet. I think it's 50 or 60 pages, and it's like 5 by 9. It's spiral bound. So I think it'll be a great thing to give to the folks you visit. So a lot of this is from that. And so when you get your copy, and then I also, in that email I sent, I sent a link to the PDF. You can definitely look through the PDF. You can print the PDF if you want to, and then we'll work on getting you a copy. But anyway, just sort of some of the basic concepts we like to share with homeowners who are considering a LakeSmart evaluation or having a LakeSmart evaluation. It's some of it's super basic, like water runs downhill. That's one of Maggie Shannon's favorite things to say. And water runs downhill, and so anywhere water drops fall in a watershed. So a watershed is the area surrounding a lake. Any water that comes and hits the ground is going to run in to its lowest point, which is going to be a lake. So you may remember this from grade school or some science class at some point.
What do you watch? Is this a new movie?
I'm going to suggest if people could mute themselves, then that'd be great. Because there's a lot of people on the call. Thank you. All right. So, a basic concept, water runs downhill. Anywhere in a watershed has the potential to affect a lake. And we know this when we have incidents where we've seen, poor forestry practices where somebody doesn't know what they're doing. They cut down a bunch of trees, and what happens, at the next big rainstorm, a lake, even if it's, a mile away, a lake can feel the impacts of poor land management. So no matter where you live in a watershed, it has the potential to affect your lake. Another kind of key concept to let for homeowners is just the fact that lakes are alive. They're living and they're always changing. So I think many of us, you look at a lake and you think, oh, it's just water. It's like a bathtub. It's just water in a pool. But there's really lots of things going on, and I'm not going to delve in at all to any details. There's a few more details in the lake book, but basically when you think about lakes and you're talking to homeowners, it's these concepts. The concept is really lakes are changing all the time. They change through the seasons, they change through the day. There's whole ecosystems of microscopic organisms, fish, invertebrates, plants that are all interacting together and creating these very complex systems. And the complexity is really important when we talk about the impact that homeowners can potentially have on these complex systems. So a couple other concepts. This is my very crude graphic, but to show you an undeveloped watershed. So a watershed is the area surrounding a lake. When it's undeveloped, when it's all in trees and natural vegetation and there's no human footprint, then when rain falls, it's going to be intercepted by vegetation. Just going to hit those leaves. Less is going to hit the ground because it's going to be intercepted by leaves and vegetation and branches. What rain does hit the ground, a lot of it's going to be absorbed. The soil is going to be loose, unpacked, not compacted. It's going to be, it's going to absorb the rain. A lot of times undeveloped landscapes, the ground's going to be uneven and bumpy and have depressions and low points where water will pool and soak in. So the big blue arrow underneath is this graphic is indicating that lots of water soaking in. And then the little blue arrow coming off to the side is just, a little bit of water. Of course, it's going to run over land in any situation. And anytime you have water running over land, it's going to be picking up sediment. And so the little pink in the graphic is soil sediment. And soil sediment has phosphorus attached to it. So, and that's really the key in the key to really all of LakeSmart activities is keeping that phosphorus out of the lake. So sure, you're going to get a little phosphorus, a little soil moving through overland and into the water in an undeveloped watershed. You're also going to get, there's those pink arrows going up from the ground. You're going to get a little bit of phosphorus from, depending on the rock substrate underneath the lake, the geology of the lake, you're going to get some phosphorus from the ground, from the ground. It's called, that's called internal loading. So there's some internal phosphorus coming from the rocks. Then there's the external phosphorus coming from overland. So, but none of us live in an undeveloped watershed. There really isn't such a thing. Well, I guess maybe in Baxter, there's some Baxter State Park, there's probably some you'd consider some undeveloped watersheds, but most of us live in a developed watershed. There's houses, there's roads, we've cut down trees, vegetation. So in an undeveloped watershed like this, you get a lot more water flowing over the ground. It's compact. It doesn't have all the depressions and natural features that's going to hold water. So more water is going to flow over the ground. It's going to pick up more phosphorus. Less water is going to soak into the ground. And then what happens when you get a lot of phosphorus in the water is that you feed algae. So if any of you are gardeners and you fertilize, when you buy fertilizer, it has those 3 numbers, and the middle number is P. It's a great plant food. It makes plants grow. That's great, except when it feeds algae and you don't want a whole lot of algae growing in your lake. You want a little bit's great. Too much is unpleasant. So keeping this phosphorus out of the lake is really a key concept for LakeSmart. And this is just sort of a picture example of, an example with photos as opposed to my graphics. So the photo on the left is obviously an undeveloped watershed or undeveloped landscape, and you can see what I mean about the ground and the depressions and then the vegetation. On the right is a developed waterfront where you're going to have 5 to 10 times the amount of phosphorus in the runoff reaching into the lake. And when you have excess phosphorus, that's what really leads to algae blooms. So the picture on the left is there was a study area in Canada in the 70s. They did this, it's called the experimental lake area. And at Lake 227, they split it in half with a barrier. They poured in a bunch of phosphorus on one side, and they poured in carbon and nitrogen on the other side. And that's where they really proved definitively that phosphorus is the causal agent for algae blooms. So any landowner around a lake is potentially a source of runoff and erosion and non-point source pollution. So as opposed to a factory or some kind of effluent coming from a source, LakeSmart is really dealing with non-point source pollution, which is basically these many tiny sources of erosion around a lake. And so this is just after a rainstorm. It's a great illustration. You can see, there's no factory spewing this kind of sediment into the water. This is just lots of little sources around the lake after a rainstorm feeding this sediment, which carries phosphorus, which feeds algae and ultimately leads to degraded water quality. So, and here's just this is an interesting example. This was a 20-minute rainstorm in 2017. I think it was up in Belgrade Lakes area, because I think these are Maggie's pictures, but just showing you the volume of rain that can come down, and you can see the what's running into the lake on the far right is full of sand, sediment, phosphorus. So really keeping the phosphorus out of the lakes is one of our primary goals with LakeSmart. There's other benefits too. LakeSmart properties are beautiful, they're green, they're natural, they require less maintenance because they tend to have, we want them to have less lawn, less maintained lawn. So they're in a more natural state. They do provide more and better quality wildlife habitat because we tend to have LakeSmart properties need buffers or areas with lots of vegetation. So there's lots of other benefits in addition, but really keeping phosphorus out is really, really key. Does anyone, I can't see everybody, but if anyone has any questions, just holler. Otherwise, I'll keep going. We can do the questions at the end. Okay. So if you're here today, you're here because you're interested in LakeSmart and either you're experienced or you're joining us for the first time, welcome again. Thank you for volunteering. Volunteers are really, really key to making LakeSmart a powerful program. So I'll just run through the evolution of LakeSmart really quickly. So LakeSmart sort of came to be at DEP in 2004. I think it might have actually been 2003. But it was a DEP program. They sent staff out to visit property owners. They did an evaluation of the property. They walked the property, and then they came up with this great idea. And a bunch of those people at DEP are still there. Kathy Hoppy is one of them. She's retiring this year. Barbara Welch is another, former DEP employee. She's the president of Lake Stewards of Maine right now. So there were some great minds at DEP who put this program together. And for 4 or 5 years, it was a great program reaching a lot of people. There was a little bit of tension because it was a regulatory agency that was giving out these awards. So there was a little bit of anxiety about that for people, a little bit of mistrust, but overall it worked great. Had some real strengths, but then in 2008, you may not remember, but DEP went through some really hard, about 8 years of really hard times where their education programming was slashed, their staff was slashed. They really got the directive to really focus on regulation and not education. So at that time, DEP was, the LakeSmart program was was going to be killed. It was going to end because DEP was not going to be allowed to continue. So, but lucky for us, we had Maggie Shannon on staff. She saw the value of the program. She started working. Oh, and I have my years wrong. Sorry. It wasn't 2008. 2008, Maggie started working with DEP staff because DEP staff knew that because of this tension with them as a regulatory agency, they knew that, and the high cost of using staff. So 2008 to 11, they Maggie Shannon worked with DEP, and they tested this model of volunteers conducting evaluations, LakeSmart evaluations. Sorry, my timeline's off. So 2012 is when the DEP education budget was really cut, and that's when the rubber hit the road. And Maggie luckily said, Maine Lakes can take on this program. We have, we can do it. We know we've done this sort of pre-worked. We know that it'll work. And so it was fully transferred over to Maine Lakes in 2013. So we've overseen the program since then. We get about $121,000 every year from DEP to run the program. It supports a full-time staff person plus all the materials and expenses that are associated with running the program, outreach material development, lots of things the signs, things that we provide. We work with regional hubs. Right now, I think there's 6 of them, and they help with our geographic reach. Roy mentioned LEA over in Bridgeton is one. There's 5 others, and so regional hubs help us extend our reach. We support lake associations who are building and expanding LakeSmart programming. We do workshops, trainings, and site visits for everybody to make sure everybody's up to speed, and we try to answer all their questions. We support volunteers throughout the whole summer and fall. And like I mentioned before, we produce resource materials, videos, and outreach. Just quickly, this is like a typical LakeSmart year, as we add about 15 to 20 new evaluators. We add and usually 3 to 4 new programs every summer. 60 to 80 active evaluators are out there doing evaluations. We have up to 250 evaluations done every year, up to 1,500 hours from volunteers. And so anyway, this is just gives you an idea of the scope of the program. It's big. It's big, and it's growing. So that's great. So why LakeSmart? You know, we know Maine Lakes are valuable. We know they're at risk. We have great information, and we know what we want people to do. So I'm just going to take like a 3-minute detour to talk about behavior change, because that's one of the key components of LakeSmart today, shifting from DEP when they sent out experts to come do evaluations to today our model, which is volunteers from within the community are the ones doing the evaluations. So, and this is just an interesting case study. There's so many case studies about behavior change that are fascinating, but I'll just do this one really quick. And the basic concept is that information, and I'm a great producer of information. I love a good brochure, and I love written material. I'm a visual person. I like to read, but I'm not normal, and that isn't how most people process information. So for most people, providing information doesn't produce behavior change. So, and we could talk about this for hours. Maggie Shannon was really passionate about this. She is really passionate about this, this area of social science, but I'll just tell you a really short story, which is that back in the 80s, they were trying to get people to, a group was trying to get people to conserve energy, turn down their thermostat, wrap their water heaters in blankets, put save water with a low flow shower head. They had all these ideas. So they brought in volunteers. They did this multimedia presentation. They tested knowledge before and after the presentation, and they showed that their presentation was effective. People learned. They learned about energy conservation. They knew. They were tested on what actions they needed to take, and in order to save money, save energy, and it was all really good. And as the people were thinking, oh yeah, this is great. We've really made headway here. But they did follow up the study with they did a follow-up to their study, I should say. So they did a follow-up, and what they found is that behavior basically did not change. Of the 40 people who listened to this presentation, one person turned their thermostat down, 2 people put insulating blankets around their water heaters, but they'd actually done this before the workshop, so it didn't really count. And then the only difference really was that 8 people had installed low flow shower heads, which sounds pretty good, except every participant in the workshop had been given a free shower head for attending the workshop. So the message is that you need more, throwing information at people doesn't work. There's a whole science around behavior change. In this case, the model we're using for LakeSmart is community-based social marketing. So it's more than just information. And a lot of times we hear people say, well, let's just hire people to go out and do evaluations. And that can work sometimes, but what's really important to the success of LakeSmart is the fact that it is community members delivering the messages about behavior change, how you can make your property better, and how you can reduce erosion. So just a couple of the concepts that are interesting is really LakeSmart seeks to create a social norm of healthy landscapes around your lake. So the norm is looking LakeSmart. You want to look LakeSmart. That's what everybody should want to do. And that's what LakeSmart seeks to do by going neighbor to neighbor and implementing this program. And the other important part is our sign. These are actually old signs, but LakeSmart award signs, and some people are like, I don't want an award sign. And of course, we're not going to force anyone to put up an award sign, but the award signs are really important because they share the message with the rest of the people, with neighbors, with people driving down the road, with people boating by on the lake. If you the LakeSmart award sign really serves as an indicator that something's going on this property, and what you want people to be doing is looking at that sign and saying, wow, that's a cool sign. I want that sign. Why, why did they get a sign? Why can't I have a sign? How do I get a sign? So the sign is really important. Like I said, we don't make anybody put it up, but that's part of this whole program. Is it's your neighbors, it's your friends coming to look at your property, talking with you about it, and then putting up this sign that sends this message to your neighbors and friends. So really the LakeSmart solution is all about figuring out where soil's eroding on a property, how and where are nutrients getting into the lake. Then it's putting an end to that as much as you can with best management practices. So increasing, and really the two of the key concepts are increasing vegetation to intercept more raindrops, and then helping rain infiltrate the soil, soak in before it gets to the lake, and really reducing those risks of more nutrients getting into the lake is really the heart of the LakeSmart program. LakeSmart really makes stewardship visible because I mentioned the award signs identify the homes, the properties illustrate lake-friendly landscaping. What does it mean to be LakeSmart in terms of what do you look like? What does it look like? It's got a lot of vegetation, very little lawn, low maintenance, natural. And again, we want people to ask, what is that sign? How can I get one? And that's where you all are going to help us do, is get those signs out. So a few more quick things, and I apologize for running through it, but I'm watching the time and I want to leave plenty of time for discussion and questions. So I'm going to fly through the rest of this, but we are going to save this as a recording, and I'll make sure you get it after this, and you can watch it again if you miss something. But so just quickly, there's many collaborators who make LakeSmart successful. So Maine Lakes, you met Andrea as the LakeSmart program manager. We have LakeSmart hubs, who are regional watershed organizations or soil and water conservation districts who help us reach more people, more lakes. And then really lake associations are the heart and soul of LakeSmart, or lake groups. They're not all lake associations, but they're really the heart and soul. So the way that LakeSmart is structured is most lakes have a coordinator. So that's one person who kind of acts as the main contact with Andrea, helps organize the program. It's the person that evaluators look to for help with setting up appointments with landowners. So the one lake coordinator, and then generally a team of LakeSmart evaluators. And the experienced evaluators can chime in at the end with how big their teams are, but they're generally more than a couple of people, 3, 4, and they can be bigger than that, depending on the size of your lake and how big your program is. But most programs, I think it's safe to say, they start small with a handful of people who are interested, and then, like some of you on the call today, you had an evaluation done, and then you're like, hey, what is this? You want to know more. So your homeowners that you visit are definitely a great pool for future evaluators. So just, I left this in here. I think Andrea, when she covers the LakeSmart evaluation, will do this more justice, but I'll just run through it quickly. It's, the homeowner expresses interest in a LakeSmart visit. That's the top left. The lake coordinator I just mentioned generally gets the ball rolling. An evaluator assigns an evaluator to the homeowner. They set up an appointment. They do a site visit. That's what Andrea will be talking about next week. The evaluator completes the site visit. There's a data entry program we use called Survey 123. data gets gets entered in there. Surveys get evaluation surveys get reviewed. They generally have 2 sets of eyes on them, all of them, just quality control. We want to make sure our standards are universally applied. Every evaluator definitely has different interpretations, but by having 2 sets of eyes on every evaluation, we assure some level of quality control. So either Hubs or Andrea at Maine Lakes does a review. And then we let the landowner know that they have either achieved the award, or if they haven't met the LakeSmart standards, then they're considered, we consider them getting a commendation. And every homeowner, this is one of the tasks for the evaluators, in addition to visiting the sites, is to write up some kind of letter. We're working on some templates for homeowner letters that will be, we're trying to make that job easier for evaluators. The homeowners get a letter from the evaluator with suggestions like, well, this looked good, this part of the property looked great, this part of the property, you know, might need some work, here's some suggestions. We have lots of resources and information to pass on to homeowners who don't meet the LakeSmart standard. Hopefully most of your LakeSmart evaluations do. Right now, about half of our LakeSmart evaluations meet the LakeSmart standards and get an award. So just quickly, LakeSmart recruitment, there's lots of different ways to go about it. Articles in your association newsletter or in your local paper. When you give an award, you know, you saw those signs. When you give the award, a lot of lake associations make a big deal about it, which they should. They either do it at their annual meetings, or they have some kind of special event. They take lots of pictures. They write up, you know, you can write up a little press release about who got the award and why. That's a great way to get into the paper. There's lake associations who have done mailings to lakefront homeowners. There's associations that do door-to-door solicitations, just walk by and drop off information. We have LakeSmart brochures. We have lots of resources to help you get the word out to your people around your lake. So we really emphasize that LakeSmart is educational, it's voluntary, there's no cost, and it's non-regulatory. So we're not reporting anything we see to any kind of regulatory agency. So really, what have you got to lose? That's one of our favorite pitches to people. Just quickly, some LakeSmart resources for folks. We do have a lot of materials on our LakeSmart. We have a toolkit on Dropbox that has lots of folders, lots of resources there. We have a lake library at the Maine Lakes website, lakes.me. Andrea will have office hours this summer where she'll be available to answer questions. We have a Slack channel, which is new, and you know, it doesn't have enough people yet to really take off, but there's a LakeSmart channel on our Maine Lake Talk Slack channel, and if you go to lakes.me/Lake Talk, you can read more about that. I'm hoping that could be a really good resource for evaluators. LakeSmart.org is lots of information. We have some really great short videos that you can watch that you could potentially put on your, if you're with an association and you have a website, you can link to those videos. They're great, short, very engaging videos to watch. Maybe that could help you recruit folks. And then of course, LakeSmart at lakes.me or A Stevens at lakes.me. I should have put Andrea's there. Lots of resources for you. So just to remind people, we'll have our Q&A here coming up. I'll get these slides off so we can see everybody. But next steps for anybody who's new to this process would be coming to part 2 of our training next week, where we'll really focus on the actual evaluation and what you look for. Then there's a survey 1, 2, 3 training in the end of June, and that just Becky from DEP helps us with that, and she runs that, and that'll be recorded for anybody who who can't make it, you can watch it. Andrea and I are both available to help people get up to speed on Survey 123. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful tool, but it certainly can be problematic to get it going. But it's absolutely essential, right? You know, with the way the world works, we don't have paper in our office anymore. And so having a database that having the evaluation data go right into a database is really, really important. So, and then of course, Andrea will schedule an in-person visit for any new teams out there. After you take part 2, she will set up a visit to come see you, to kind of, if you can find a property that needs an evaluation, she will, you know, walk through it with you as a group. You can discuss all the questions on the evaluation, and that'll be enough to really get you started. So with that, I'll just do a quick thank you slide, because you know, this is what it's all about, is all of you volunteering to help us with this program. So I've talked way too long, but there is enough time. I did not go over my time too much, and so there is enough time to look at an adorable grandbaby, and to I don't know if Marie or Roy, if you want to jump in with just like 2 or 3 minutes of a
Could I possibly jump in first, because their mom is almost here at the door?
yes, go for it.
What I did was I checked off things you covered from my list of things to mention. So my talk will not be very long. When I agree, start slow. So, you know, you get to know how to do it and you're comfortable and not overwhelmed with it. What I use is an Excel sheet. So I know who I've seen, what the date was, their contact information, what the outcome was. So I do that from year to year. I've been doing this for like 14 years. And it's very helpful because you sometimes need that data going forward. I also like using buddies. So when I go to an evaluation, or any coordinator or any evaluator goes, we have a second person. A second set of eyes is very helpful, and they do come in handy too. Another thing we tried was, that worked really well, was ambassadors. So if you've gone onto a camp road and one of the persons there is quite personable, they may be an advocate for getting other homes willing to have an evaluation. We call them ambassadors. And I have a sheet of paper that I outline what I would like them to do specifically. And then I have to say, I've never had a bad experience going to a homeowner. It's been really great. And I've been able to go down camp roads I would never have gone down before, and meet people I never would have met. So it's been really, really nice. What I find is that homeowners, once you give them your recommendations, they don't tend to follow through all by themselves, because they lack either money or physically the ability to be able to get the work completed. Maybe they don't have the time, and they lack the expertise. So if your Lake Association is ever able to form a youth conservation corps of high school people or college people to do the remediation, that would be fantastic. And the last thing I would like to say is the Dropbox files are really worthwhile taking time to get familiar with them, because there's lots of information that you can use. And that's it.
Awesome. Thanks, Marie.
You're welcome.
And maybe we can put that page about ambassadors that you have written up. Maybe we can put that in the Dropbox for.
Yes, if you don't have it already. And everything that I've made through all these 14 plus years, I've always passed it on, but I can make sure I send it.
Yeah, I'll send you an email about it, because we just cleaned it out. There was a bunch of old stuff, and
Sure.
so I'll get it from you.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Roy, do you want to jump in?
Sure. One of the, and Marie may have a different impression, but one of the impressions I have when I'm in Bridgeton, Southern Maine, and we don't have any real threats yet about disastrous algae blooms. And because of that, nobody here seems to feel threatened by the potential, which is not the case throughout Maine. And it seems to me that the programs that have the highest level of activity are those areas where that threat has been realized and people are suddenly much more connected to the fact that it can happen here. So down here in Bridgeton and environs, that makes it a little more difficult to get people to participate. So in my case, we didn't have a lake association when we started the LakeSmart program, which is unusual. And because having a lake association is usually the way you communicate with the people around the lake. We didn't have that means. So out of basically desperation, we started going door to door to sell, which is not something that everybody feels comfortable with. I was the one that primarily felt comfortable doing it, so I did it. And then I would schedule with the team members for our lake, and we'd team up, as Marie said, with 2 or 3 evaluators, giving ourselves experience and also giving ourselves additional confidence in the judgments that we were making. One of the things I discovered going door to door is what sells in terms of getting people to participate, because initially I started selling the LakeSmart Award sign. It's what appealed to me. It's, you know, you would hope everybody would want one. Your hope would not be realized. There are a fair amount of people who could care less about the sign. And I learned that pretty quickly, but I did learn there is one way to sell the program that works every time. And that is, you look at the lake and you say, you love that lake. I live down the lake. I love that lake. I want to protect it. That is the sales pitch that will work, because everybody wants, they say at least, and feels at that moment they want to protect their lake. And you explain how LakeSmart can help do that. And at that point, if you're selling door to door anyway, they say, yes, I would like to participate. I have then learned, if you are selling door to door, strike while the iron is hot. Have the questionnaire that you need, the information from the homeowner, have it available at that moment and ask them to fill it out. If they say, oh, I will send it to you, at that point, I get a little aggressive and I say, well, experience tells me that 50% of the people who say they will send it to me won't. And by pressing them at that moment, you will get the information and you will ultimately have them participate in the program. But there's that moment where they're basically saying, oh, I'd rather not take the 2 minutes to fill out this questionnaire. So I've learned that. And the other thing I've learned is the value of regional, basically developing regional ties, because you've got new evaluators on several lakes in the area. You can all start thinking as a team. If you've got a new evaluator on Tricky Pond in our area, for example, that person is working alone, and that's an uncomfortable place to be. That may be you. If you can develop a relationship with somebody who's more experienced in the area and start teaming up for evaluations, it will get you experience. It will allow a more experienced person to pass on valuable lessons that they've had. And after you've had half a dozen evaluations under your belt, you're going to develop a confidence in what you're doing that will make you exceedingly valuable to the program in a way that where you don't feel that value the first time you do an evaluation. And I agree with Marie. There's great pleasure in participating in this program, and to me, the biggest pleasure is meeting all of my neighbors. It's now I know probably more people around the lake than anybody else. And it's simply because I've been out there, meeting them. So enjoy the process. That's it.
I don't know, Barbara, if you want to chime in with anything. Barbara's a long time, or anyone else, or you
Well,
want to add anything, Barbara?
certainly. I mean, basically, everything that Marie and Roy have said is spot on for advice for a group. Marie worked closely with Maggie and the Maine Lakes Association as we were developing. BLA was working. We passed information back and forth. Feel free that if you're new to the program, but you know another lake that's had a program for a while, work with them, mentoring between different lake associations. In turn, you can help each other out. As you have inexperienced people and they have experienced people, you can invite them to come help you with an evaluation. They in turn might help invite you back over to their lake. And that's a good learning tool. That's the one thing I would add to what has already been said.
Awesome. Well, we'll just open up to questions. Any new folks have questions? Any experienced people want to add anything more? I think it's just 6 o'clock, so maybe 5 or 10 minutes of Q&A if anybody has anything. Or if not, well, I'll go eat dinner. But
one thing I would like to say, you're talking about what you say, a letter to the homeowner. What I always call it a written report for the evaluation. And because of one of the teams in our area, they have developed an amazing report form that summarizes what we're looking for at every portion of the evaluation, and then offers suggestions. And it makes writing the report easy because all you're doing is filling in the suggestions you have to make, and the report is already providing in its normal form a whole bunch of information to the homeowner. And I suspect that if it's not there yet, it will be in the toolbox very shortly. I'm finding it this year to be a much easier way to write a report than even the reports I was writing last year.
I actually have 2 questions. The first one is that you mentioned needing an assistant in the Bangor area. Is most of the LakeSmart program concentrated in the southern part of the state then? Is there much up in northern Penobscot County or Aroostook County?
no, but we're certainly trying to grow. We're in 14 out of 16 counties. We do have a couple programs way up north. Cross Lake is one, and then there's another one. I'm blanking on the lake name. So there's a couple up there. And we're absent in Washington County. We don't have a big presence over there. So those are kind of our 2 areas where we really can grow the program and add people. I'd say most of our lakes are kind of the I-95 corridor, if you think of that, that core of, from, there's certainly a lot around Belgrade Lakes. There's a lot around Winthrop and Winslow. There's a bunch in Western Maine and the Bridgeton area. There's a bunch Southern Maine, York County. There's a bunch of lakes down there. We do have there is a map, and I'll try to figure out where that's stored, but we do have a map of all of the active lakes.
Cool. Okay. My next question is, I understand the whole program is voluntary and basically it's a carrot rewarding people for good behavior and encouraging good behavior. But is there also, do LakeSmart evaluators also, how much contact do they have with the LUPC for people that are blatantly violating Shoreland Act?
None.
It's
None.
kind of I mean, we sort of sell the program as being non-regulatory. So we don't turn people in.
Well, you know, when I'm going in and selling a program, one of the things I emphasize is, I say it this way: in the unlikely event that we discover a code violation on your property, the only people we talk to are you. And then I go further and I say, we never talk to a code enforcement officer. And I explain why. Because if we did, our program would be dead. Nobody would allow us on their property anymore. It's that simple.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
I'll say we've never had an egregious, I mean, when I think of some of the egregious things I've seen, I don't know what I'd do then if it was really bad, but luckily, you know, most of the things we all see are fairly minor, and we stick to the non-regulatory role.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I think what you're going to find is you gain experience by doing. You're going to take the next session. You'll learn sort of the basics of what to start looking for, but you really start learning when you do the first evaluation with some people. And it won't take long to get your feet on the ground doing that. The first one or two you do, you'll feel slightly uncomfortable, and you'll be more and more comfortable as you do it.
All right. Any last thoughts from anybody? Okay. Well, thank you all for coming, and I hope to see a lot of you next week for the longer session. Bring a snack, bring a beverage. We'll as Roy said, and you know, the evaluation on paper is one thing, the evaluation in real life is another. So we'll do the best we can and by Zoom, and then you'll all have the privilege of meeting with Andrea on site and meeting with experienced evaluators, and you'll see it's definitely never as easy as you think it's going to be, but the system does work, and we're really proud of of the awards, and you know, it really does work to change behavior. So thank you so much, all of you, for being a part of it, for volunteering in the past or in the future, and keep in touch, email us. I'll send you the recording in a day or two when we get it downloaded, and I hope to see you all again next week.
Bye-bye.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
everybody.
much.
Thank you.
Bye.